where knowledge is suppressed and ignorance is glorified. A world where propaganda and misinformation travel the airways at the speed of lies. But in the midst of the violence and chaos, a great awakening is taking place. And as the media empires continue to collapse, a new network is forming. A network of truth. A network of courage. A network of awareness. Peace and greetings. You are now tuned into the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, where we examine current events, politics, health, finance, and topics of cultural relevance in America and throughout the world, while bringing you insightful interviews with guests that will both educate and inspire you. And now, your host of the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, ORRA the Informationalist.
My aura is a network full of awareness and gifts like ORRA, the Informationalist.
Disclaimer: the content of this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, financial, or other professional advice. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or positions of the Network of Awareness producers, subsidiaries, entities, or any other associate parties. Peace and greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world. Shout outs to all my Network of Awareness following us on Rumble. That's right, we're on Rumble right now. If you haven't followed us on Rumble, check us out there, as well as on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and on Spreaker, Apple, Spotify, and all other podcasting platforms where podcasts are played. We are there, people. And welcome to this installment of a new series that I'm starting called the Peace of Mind series. And in this Peace of Mind series, I am going to be bringing on a guest that many of you are already familiar with, right? As you saw in the description box, or if you're watching this, you saw on the screen where the title of the show is called Our Friends Don't Pretend. So in this Peace of Mind series, I'm going to be joined by Auxakai from Alpha Talk series. He's also has a podcast on this network called 101 with Auxakai. So if you don't know who he is, you're going to get to know him today. And when it comes to what we're going to be discussing, when it comes to faithful friendships and relationships, there are a few important things to be aware of. First and foremost, it's important to be mindful of the type of person with whom you are forming a relationship with, regardless of whatever type of relationship it is. People with authentic personality characteristics are the ones who are most likely to remain true and faithful in a relationship. These people are genuine in their feelings and actions, and they don't have the need to desire or to pretend to be something they're not. Another important factor to consider when cultivating a true and faithful relationship is communication, people. And in order to have a solid foundation of that, it's essential to be open and honest with your partner or with your friend. And this means having a regular conversation about your feelings, expectations, and goals for the relationship. This also means that being willing to listen to the other person's perspective and being willing to compromise when necessary. Finally, it's important to remember that relationships are a two-way street and that both partners should be equally invested in making it work. And in regards to this, just a real quick note, sometimes people come onto the show and they're not I don't necessarily agree with what they're bringing out, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong, or that I don't respect how they perceive their reality and how they perceive things that they believe in. And I think it's important that we respect and have compassion for each other's beliefs and how we see the world and how we perceive our realities. So I think it's very important. That's one of the reasons why I'm very grateful that I finally put the disclaimer up, because it should have been up a long time ago. But better late than never. And with that being said, let's bring on the brother Auxakai. Let's go. And
hey, peace, fam.
Hey, peace. Looks like your screen is black. I don't know what happened. I saw you before, but you're not on camera anymore.
Hold on.
All right.
My back up there?
No, it's still black. If you want, why don't you just, you want to try to log back in or something?
Yeah, let me try that.
Yeah, it just went black before, so.
All right, let me try that.
Okay. So, and also too, one thing I want to mention as well is shout outs to all the people on TikTok and Instagram that have been really reposting a lot of the podcast clips and video clips that we have from the podcast. Greatly appreciate you sharing it amongst your community of social media, because that's how that helps us grow. So the more that you guys do that was really appreciated. And I mean, especially on TikTok, there goes the brother. So welcome, man. I was just talking about how, so many people on TikTok, especially, and some on Instagram, but more on TikTok, have just been reposting my videos from the podcast, whether it be audio or visual. And it's, it really helps because once they put that on their social media platform, like their feed, it gets exposed to a whole new potential listeners if they want to check it out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But with that being said, man, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Network of Awareness. I know you're not a newcomer to this, so why don't you give an introductory statement, because people haven't seen you for a while, and I have new listeners all the time. So give a little introduction about yourself so they get to know you a little bit.
I go by the name Calvin. My stage name is Auxakai. I do music as far as production as well as recording vocal artists. Been doing that half my life. Started the last few years doing podcasting, venturing off into the podcast world, and came up with my own series, which was the Alpha Talk series, which is based on masculinity towards men, guidance through different things that men, experience throughout their manhood. And that's mostly where I'm at now. Right now, I'm currently a truck driver, so been trying to get back into the podcast world, but things just moving slower than they usually, but it's getting there.
Well, you're doing it now. So, and if for those that don't know, Alpha Talk series already has season 1. So there's the whole season 1 and some of season 2, because he's still in season 2. And then there's episodes from 101 with Auxakai on the Network of Awareness as well. So if you go to our Spreaker page, you'll find them. And if you go wherever podcasts are played, you'll find them as well, whether it be Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many others. So, I thought it was perfect that we discussed this, because you bring a lot of this information that we're going to discuss out in your on Alpha Talk series and 101 with Auxakai. So where do we start? I mean, where would you like to start? Because there's so much to talk about in regards to this, because obviously we talk about narcissism and stuff like that, but I think it's important for people to know what a true friendship or relationship looks like, because the reason why I say our friends don't pretend is because if you have somebody in your life that's always been real with you, chances are that person is still friends with you and you're still friends with them. Because me personally, I have friendships that are over 25 years old, 30 years old, and there's one friendship that I've had that's 40 years. Now, me and him don't spend as much time as we used to together, but that friendship is still solid, always will be. But I have a friend that I've been hanging out with here in Florida that I've known since I was 18 years old in high school. And she came down here because her mother-in-law died. So her and her husband have been, taking care of things. And, I'm good friends with her husband too, as far as like, me and him actually done business together in the past and stayed at my house, just me and him doing business. And that's how I met him, through her. So it's just interesting how I didn't see her for years, but we always kept in contact, right? And it's like, as soon as I saw her, it was like we was 18 again, bro. It's like all that time we spent together, it's like just like yesterday, because of the foundation of our friendship that we've maintained for the past 27 years. Same thing with my friend Billy. Billy I've known for about 10 years. And all these friendships that I have link into is even in friendships like yourself, Take, Julian, those are more younger friendships. And what I mean by younger, meaning like they don't have the same time invested, but the same principles that are shared with the people that I've known for 27 plus years are the same principles that are shared with you guys. And I really want to put a spotlight on that, because our friends don't have to pretend. We just real, we're authentic with each other. We tell us what we need to hear, even if it's not convenient. So let's talk about the first thing that was brought out that I wrote in the description box, which is, we have to be mindful of the type of person that we're dealing with and forming a relationship. So why don't we expound on that for a minute?
Okay. I would say for me, it always starts off with, for one, I mirror myself. I look at who I am as a person, you know, like that's what you're going to attract within your friendship. It's going to be parts and different moments you're going to realize you have common things with your friend. So that's what I always look for. Being honest, being transparent about things. That's a must, because even at the worst of times, I'd rather somebody tell me the truth than give me a pretty lie, you know. And you got a lot of people who would do that. They're not necessarily in a bad way. Maybe they don't want to hurt your feelings, but sometimes we need constructive criticism on things, you know. I need somebody to tell me, hey, yo, you fucking up. Person, you're not doing your best or doing this at your best ability, you know what I mean? So I always play that into effect with my friendship, you know what I mean? Like similar to what you said, I have lots of friends who I've been for years, you know what I mean? And one of my good friends back in Delaware, we don't necessarily talk all the time, but we've been friends for since I moved to Delaware for almost 14 years. And normally around Christmas, around, you know, that pagan holiday or whatever, that's where I would hear from. That's where we normally would hang out. So I know to expect around December is when he might reach out and call, say, hey, how you doing, Auxakai? How's things going on the road, you know? And it's weird because you figure, how is that possible that you don't speak to this person all the time, but you guys will pick up you guys never left off like it was yesterday. But I think that goes into just a person knowing your character, having background history with that person. And it kind of goes into that whole transparency. He always knew what my plans was for my future. He already knew I was going to move, but it's just crazy how we could pick up the phone, still communicate with each other like it was yesterday. And it's probably been a year since we talked. But I always start off with looking at who I am first, you know what I mean? Then as friends, you know, that kind of, like I said, you're going to have common ground with that friendship. You're going to build off from there. Also keeping respect for a friendship too, you know what I mean? One of my latest shows, I mentioned, pay back what you owe. I think a lot of us, not saying everyone, but a lot of us know if we got that one friend that we could go to when we need help. I feel to keep that bond, you know, well preserved. If you borrow $50 from your friend, pay him back. You know what I mean? You got some people, and I don't know, I won't say they're not true friends, but I think they'll take advantage of a certain friendship too, to where it's like, oh, I could borrow from this dude and not have to worry about it. You know what I mean? To me, I'm more of a type, if I borrow from you, I'm paying it back. So I always try to keep my friendship pure and respectful to the best of my ability.
You know, you mentioned something about you didn't, you caught up with your friend, just like me. You could catch up with your friend a year from now. And it's like you didn't talk for a whole year. It's like you just spoke to them yesterday. I brought that out too, but I would like to get your perspective on why you think that is. What do you think is that bond that is so solidified and has such a great foundation that what makes it happen to where you talk to somebody after not speaking to them for a year and it's like yesterday? What do you think is the components of that feeling, that why that is the way it is?
I would say it has a little bit to do with growth, I would think. Not only just growth on one person's part, but on both ends. Because in growth, you're not going to always be doing the same thing you was doing, you know, a year ago with hanging around or having so much time. You're going to go through different, you know, obstacles and different things, scenarios in your life to where you might have to pull back from a person or, you know, spend more time doing something else, to where it's like you're not going to have that much free time. But I think when you do come back to that friend, it's like, I don't know. I really can't say. I would say it's like, it's hard for me to say. I don't even know how to put that into words, but it's like, it's magical because it's like you guys have spent hours before you know, talking and go over things, catching up with each other. I think it's just the essence of the friendship itself. The bond is unreplaceable. So it's like, you could I don't know, some people would get mad at you, I guess, if you haven't speak to them or reached out, but I don't know, when you got a real friend, they understand, I know what you're going through. I know you got a new career or, you know, you got a new relationship or, you know, even a marriage or something to where you're not available like you once was. But to me, I think it would have more to do with the bond between you and that person. and growth. I would definitely say growth. It's not just you growing, but you guys both are growing to where, it kind of makes the bond more powerful.
Right. What about, let's go to the next thing too, because this is something you really have educated people on for the past several years. Even when you was on, when you started out on Instagram, kind of podcasting on Instagram, you were using your podcast platform on Instagram, and then you went to podcasting. But what was said earlier in the description was another important factor to consider. And it's probably, besides love and respect being the most important factors, is the relationship being cultivated through communication, and how communication is a solid, like it's one of the most important factors to developing a true and faithful relationship. Now, in this image, right, I'm showing two people of the opposite sex, right? These are not binaries or they or them. These are just man and a woman. Now, because you definitely promote masculinity on your show and you always give the male perspective, let's give the male perspective right now, because we're males, right? We're men. And we can only give a male perspective because we're not in the minds of a female. We're not in the bodies of a female. And from a male perspective, you and I have never been married, but we've been in very serious relationships. And we've had our experience with those. So let's talk about communication. Let's cover this very in depth, because this, to me, in my opinion, I think is one of the most important things for any relationship, whether it be with your friends, your family, or your loved ones, or your coworkers. Communication is key for a relationship to be sustainable in staying positive and being fulfilling. Because misunderstanding happens a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Constant misunderstanding. But if you can communicate through that misunderstanding, great things can form in that potential of the relationship for the future and in the present. So let's talk about, let's start wherever you want, because you have a lot to say about this. And I want the listeners to really get the understanding that you've come to understand about communication, why it's so important.
Like you said, communication itself, like all aspects of your life, it's going to be present there. With the lack of communication, it brings even friendships, relationships, it could bring tension between two parties. You know what I mean? Those I want to say might even lead up to resentment, depending on how long the lack of communication goes. That's to me, it's having the strong communication. It's should be able to express yourself without necessarily upsetting somebody, but letting them know where you stand from, where you come from too. You know what I mean? There's been situations, I could give you an example now. Actually last week I had a sinus infection, and my boss is my driver manager is I need you to take this load. I'm and to be honest, bro, I'm sick. I just can't do it right now. So, he understood where I was coming from, because, for one, I don't necessarily go through these kind of days when I don't work, or I give him an excuse not to do something. So he's like, I get it. Just, take the 2 days off, relax, get better, and, get back to doing what you do. I felt just him understanding that, me expressing and letting him know what's going on. But I have to lie about it, or, just that alone open up a whole honesty to where he know where I was coming from. Communication is very important. If you don't know how to speak and express your emotions or feelings, even in a relationship, it's going to push the person away to where they might think you're emotionally unavailable, or you just intentionally belittle or diminish them to where, they don't want to be around you. And friendships too, just communicating, letting a person know where you stand at, where you come from. It's opened up a lot. And I feel like a lot of men who also could be very closed-minded or cut off, emotionally detached from expressing ourselves, not just understanding how to verbally word how we feel, but just be able to express to our partner where we stand at with things, So I would say communication is a must. You have to have good people skills, not just people skills, but friendships, relationships, work. If you don't know how to communicate, you're going to find yourself very frustrated. And I've been there, because a person can't read your mind. They don't understand how you feel unless you tell them. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what exactly caused a lot of arguments with couples, not being able to voice yourself. Hey, I don't like the fact that you hang out with your girlfriends, for example, all the time, or on our times off, or you know what I mean. Being able to voice yourself, it could nip a lot of attention in the butt. I think that's just my personal perspective.
Very true. You brought out a lot of great points. And give me 1 second here. I forgot to put my fan on to my computer. Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't put my fan on, after a while, my audio interface along with the computer starts getting staticky. So I do apologize. That's something I should have remembered.
You're right.
But what I was saying to you was that I pulled up the definition on Webster Dictionary. Give me 1 second here.
Mm-hmm.
And let me pull it up. Okay. So it says the definition of communication is about getting information from one party to another, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Communication can be defined as the process or act of exchanging, expressing, or conveying information and ideas through writing, speaking, and gesturing. Now, one of the things that really stands out to me here is the writing and gesturing. So let's focus on the writing part, because a lot of times, like even the people that are listening to this podcast, we automatically in our mind go directly to talking to each other, speaking, like you and I are doing right now. And people sometimes think that that's the only way we communicate with each other. Or if you're in a relationship, that's the only way you can communicate with each other. And I can tell you from experience that a lot of good ways to communicate with people when in any type of form of relationship or friendship is writing, because you'd be surprised how much could be accomplished. Like when people are in jail and they're writing letters to their loved ones, how meaningful that is. But I think we tend to forget that we can write letters to the people that we have friendships with and relationships with. And that used to be very common practice before, right? Because back in the days, in the olden days, before television and email and internet and all that stuff, telephone, if I wanted to talk to you and tell you what's going on with me or tell you how I feel about a situation or anything I wanted you to know, I had to write you a letter. And that letter would probably take a month, 3 months to get to you. And then you would write me back. I mean, we could even go back as far as me putting a letter in a bottle and putting it in the ocean and sending it down the river to you. People would do this stuff. Put it on a dove or a bird, right? Or eagle or hawk. The eagle or hawk would send the message. But it was meaningful. It's meaningful present modern day times to still be able to communicate through writing and send that writing, whether it be a poem, a love letter, or just a letter of admiration, or a letter of, sending somebody a letter of condolences if they have a loss of a family member. All these things are meaningful. And I think that we're not practicing that enough in the friendships and relationships we have.
Right. I agree. Even now, like, I guess with modern day technology, like, we do a form of writing, but it's mostly typing when you send a text message or an email off. But I feel that part is especially present in friendships and relationships. I remember when I was coming up, like when we was in high school, we used to write poems to girls. Like, so I mean that aspect of writing each other is very powerful. Because even if a person couldn't express themselves verbally, maybe they need time to sit and think on a subject or think on what they want to say, to where writing it, they could probably express itself a lot more. So I agree with that.
Yeah, and it's something about writing that I've written plenty of poems. It's something I need to get back into, because that's all I did at one point. I'm a writer. I have tons of literature that I haven't even shared. And I think it's important that we do that, especially when you really want somebody to understand how meaningful they are to your life. I think it's better to put it in a letter than to actually tell them. Because sometimes when you write your thoughts down, that's the spirit talking. The words are scriptures, right? Because that's what scriptures means. It means writings. So your words are scriptures. You could put them into your scriptures, your thoughts. It's coming from the spirit. And a lot of times when somebody just really gets to see what your spirit is conveying through speech or through language and through whatever type of language it is, unfortunately, we have to do it through the English language, which is a language of confusion, but we bring it together.
Barbaric.
Language of spells and of other things, right? But it's like, and even back in the day, speaking on that, the Hebrew language, older languages, one word would mean a variety of different things. One word can express a whole entire sentiment of emotion.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing that the English language lacks, but is there's something that you just gain from it that you're not, that it is nothing that you can't say that's not going to be meaningful and have an impact on a person's life. But I think that it's just like, remember how we were talking about in the past where for me especially, I like audio. I like radio. I don't have to be on camera. You know, people I just care about people hearing my voice and hearing the message that's being conveyed over the airwaves.
Right.
And studies have already showed that when back in the days when our ancestors was listening to only radio, the faculty of imagination that creates the imagery in the mind would allow you to be more engaged with that faculty of the brain that television and screens don't allow you to have. So it's something a little bit more meaningful that's more intimate with you, the individual that's listening to that and what it's doing up here opposed to the screen, which I'm going to do an episode about an article I came across about how scientific studies show that doing a Zoom call or video streaming call like you and I are doing now is not going to have the same impact neurologically than if you and I were talking in person.
Absolutely.
So my whole point to all of this is that there's something a lot more intimate with writing, right? Let's talk about gesturing. What do you think about gesturing as far as a form of communication? And while you're doing that, I'm going to pull up the definition of gesturing so that the audience can know exactly what we're talking about here.
I would like to hear the definition too first before I, because now
what does gesture mean? Right? Gesture mean exactly what it is. I think sometimes we put too much thought it is. It's a movement, usually about of the body or limbs that expresses or emphasizes an idea, settlement, or attitude. It's just like when it says an example, raise his hand over his head in a gesture of triumph, like yes. So we talk to each other a lot through our body language, right? Body language is very important. It's a very important form of communication. Actually, CIA has done studies on this that I think it's about 90% of our communication is through body language. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Because like gesture itself to me, like you could tell a lot about a person by how they, their body talks to you. Like I noticed even certain things like before I got into somewhat of a relationship that like even dealing with women, I could tell someone's into me if a woman's into me because her body would point more towards me, her pelvis be more into me. She have uncontrollable smiling going on, the fiddling with the hair and, things of that nature.
Or she might get the warm and fuzzies when she's around you.
Yeah, the googly eyes and stuff. So.
She's like, oh, I feel like I'm 15 again.
Yeah. And it happens to me too sometimes if it's with that person I'm highly attracted to. So, gesture itself tells you a lot about a person. Even somebody, not just a woman, but just like, a friend where you could tell when your friend might be uncomfortable. They might be like a little fidgety or, agitated or something like, or uncomfortable, either the shaking of the knee or, biting on the nails or fingernails, like tells me that person might be on edge about something, So gesture itself, if you know how to read the body language, it does play a big part in communication, especially when you get to know someone, Like I could almost tell like one of my family members, they got to tell, but I could tell when they're lying to me because they have a tendency to look down or look to the right and look down. Like, so it does play a big part on communication itself and understanding, who you're dealing with and what a person actually is, what they want to say, but they might not be saying it to you. So I agree with that. I agree with what you said about the definition of gesture.
Can you talk about how good it feels to be around somebody who doesn't have to pretend to be something they're not, opposed to being around the people that do pretend to be something they're not?
Oh, absolutely. For me, it's like, it's very powerful. I'd rather have somebody, to me, that one honest friend is worth 100 fake friends. Because the reason I say that is because I want somebody who's going to be upfront with me, who's going to be honest. To reiterate what I said in the beginning of the show, it was like, I want somebody to call me on my bullshit if I might be slacking on something. Like, yo, Ox, you do better than that, man. What are you doing? Somebody who's going to give it to me raw and authentic. A lot of days you got a lot of fake friends who, is like a yes man or a yes woman, yeah, you look good in that. Meanwhile, you might not look good in a suit. might not be your color or something. But just the importance of having somebody who's authentic in the brotherhood for me is very like important, because us, especially in today's society, we go through so many different things. You know what I mean? If you don't have somebody who's real in your corner, it's hard to identify what's real and what's fake. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know if you're being used. I'd rather have a friend who's going to have my back when my back is turned amongst other people, and is going to, you know, hold my name down and be there for me, than somebody who might just act like they're my friend. As soon as my back's turned, you know, they gossiping and talking down on me. You know what I mean? So that importance of having a real person is, you know, it's very important to me. Like I said, not to call me on my shit, to be honest, even their perspective, maybe they can see something in a scenario that I'm overlooking or I can't see. You know what I mean? Just having a different eyesight or a set of ears to hear when I'm venting and be like, oh, but you're looking at this a little differently, and maybe you need to start looking at it like this, or maybe you need to look at it from this aspect. You know, I have to trust somebody. I have to have a real friend I could trust to give me that kind of information, to relay that to me. You know what I mean? Especially knowing how I am, I'm very like, you know, like mindful of who I trust, you know what I mean? And share certain information, divulge information to. So that importance of a real friend is very important for me.
But you gave the first part. Now the second part. What is it like when you're around? I mean, you talked a little bit about it, my bad. But I want you to give like examples of the experience, what it's like for you when you're around those pretenders, opposed to the experience and what it's like when you're around the authentics.
Oh, yeah. The pretenders is like, for me, I noticed being around them, it's not going to be nothing of no real substance. It's going to be like almost like a dry conversation. It's nothing intellectual.
Give me a better example, because I know you have plenty. Give me a specific example of what you went through with a pretender. By the way, I'm putting out a song, with a song called Pretender. It's more of a spoken word song with a young sister from the BLCC, Lydia, and it's called Pretender. It's a song I told you I've been wanting to work on for a while, but I'm making sure I'm putting a lot of, you know, making sure I get it together really well. But I just wanted to mention that for the people. Be on the lookout. We're going to be having a song called Pretender come out. But yeah, give me your example. Give me specifics. So
I could say, for me, it was like there's a scenario where it's like I thought somebody was for me, and you know, me and this person was talking all the time, to where it's like I started to hear different information from other people, like that person really don't mess with you as much as they claim, you know. And I thought I was being a real friend for them, but I just started to notice, like, when the more and more I start to dwell with this person and talk with them, it just wasn't real. You know what I mean? I start to see the fakeness. For one, it was always like when me and this person would talk, there'll always be, if it wasn't me, they was in my presence, they'll be bashing somebody else. That's one thing I noticed. The bashing, you know, it's always the gossiping about this person and that person. So, you know, as time starts to go by, I start to realize, you know, that's all this person do. They're just talking negative about people, tearing people down, you know. And it wasn't for long before I start to see text messages from other friends like, oh, this is what this person actually feel about you. So I could say for me, it's like, it just wasn't real, you know what I mean? And I also realized just being around that person, if it wasn't about drama or gossip or what was the latest information on somebody, intel, they really didn't have much to talk about. They would never talk about nothing. Like I would say, you either speak life or you spit poison. You know what I mean? They never wanted to build nothing up out of life. They never wanted to talk about their ambitions and what they want to do, or where they see themselves, or where they're working to do. It was always about, like I said, just spitting poison. They always want to tear down somebody, you know, just gossip, negative energy. So that's one thing I could say I witnessed for myself. You know what I mean? Being around a fake friend. I won't even say a friend or a fake person.
And the simple explanation for the opposite of that is the opposite of that with the authentic people. They talk about the things that are meaningful. They're not
absolutely
getting on the phone with you, telling you all their problems all the time, dumping that negativity on you, or talking about other people and all this other stuff and dumping that negativity on you. They're in good spirits. They happy to hear your voice. They're happy to talk to you, and they're going to tell you meaningful things and things that are very inspiring. And that's important because a lot of people do that. And I've had people talk about that on my show here since season 1. I remember Robert Riopel said that one of his friends, and this guy, you know, this is a motivational speaker, author, world-renowned millionaire guy that seems to have it all together. And he was telling me that every time he would talk to his friend, he didn't realize that he was just talking about himself and all the good things he got going on. And one day his friend had to check him and be like, bro, I don't know if I'm going to keep talking to you. And he's like, well, what's going on? Like, he's like, every time I talk to you, you always want to talk about yourself. You never ask me how I'm doing. It's always all about you. And then that's when he had to be like, wow, he had to re-examine how he was acting and behaving with his friend. And then, of course, he changed his ways and became more conscious that, hey, I'm always talking about myself with my friend. I don't even ask my friend how their day is going or anything or how their life is going. It's all about listening to me and then the conversation's over. And a lot of people have done it. I've done it in the past. I'm more aware of not doing that, but I've done it in the past, especially when somebody asks me, how's everything going? I start going in.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But we got to be conscious that we have to have compassion for what the other person is going through. And we won't know that unless we ask. We have to make sure that's where that equal exchange is, where it has to be that equal exchange. And like the description says, where, let me pull it up here, where there's compromise, right? Especially in a relationship, right? Because it says it's important to remember that in relationships, it's a two-way street and both partners should be equally invested in making it work. But also that, you know, when you're sharing conversations about your feelings, expectations, and goals, that's really what a good friendship is about, is sharing that so that you're both growing together, but also individually, because we're responsible for our lives and our growth. You know, God only helps those who help themselves, period. I don't care what nobody says. You can have a different opinion, but that is the truth. The spirit of the Most High is within all of us. Okay, whether we realize it or not, we were created in the image of light. So we have light. We are made up of light, and we got the responsibility of making that light work, or we can turn that light into darkness. And
absolutely,
you know, when it comes to, let's talk about when it comes to that compromising too, because you talk about this in relationships. So let's talk about how, especially for the people that are listening that are developing relationships with the opposite sex. And, you know, because I had a friend tell me the other day, you know, women are emotional. They like what they hear. Men are visual. They like what they see. And I was like, there's truth to that. I
agree with that.
And I also used to hear a lot that men are logical, women are emotional. But nowadays, and you've talked about this on your Simp series, and I did a show with you called Simping in the Darkness.
Yeah, so, I remember that show.
Simping in the darkness. And go ahead.
I would say to compromise is to me, to compromise is to give up a part of you, your selfishness a little bit. Not even selfishness. It's you're willing to sacrifice. To me, love is compromise, sacrifice, and loyalty. That's what love is made up of. If you can't find a person who's could bring all three, if not one of them things to the table, it's like you're only going to get so far with that person. You know what I mean? Relationships, especially because if a person's not willing to compromise or sacrifice for you, it just lets you know where you stand up with them. You're not somebody of great importance in their life. Somebody who you have a strong bond with and they're important, and you're going to do whatever it takes to keep them there. You know what I mean? To keep them, I'm sorry, hold on. Something came up. To keep them happy though. Like you're going to try to make everything work out to the best of your ability. So if you're like, example, if you're like, you know, your wife or your girlfriend or lady friend might be like, hey, look, I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. I know you're working. And, you know, she's asking more of your time. You're going to start looking, and she's important to you. You're going to be like, all right, well, let me look at my calendar. Let me put off this business meeting, or let me try to get home around this day and spend the weekend with her. You're going to make things happen. And us as men, that's like what we're built to try to lead and make things happen. You know what I mean? So, but that's a two-way street. The same goes for the woman. They got to be willing to compromise for you too. You know what I mean? If a woman can't adjust, or even if you like tell her certain things that you might not like, if she can't humble herself to listen to what you're saying and make a decision to where, okay, I don't want to lose him, but I also want to make him happy too. You know, and she got to be willing to compromise. It's just like you're going to have to sacrifice a part of yourself to get more out of love. You know what I mean? at least that's my perspective and opinionated thought on it.
Very true. You brought out some great points. Can you talk about, because you've had this happen, can you talk about how a relationship looks when it lacks communication and the person is not being forthcoming with you, being secretive, not telling you exactly how they feel, but their actions, or put it like this, their words say one thing, but their actions speak another. You know a lot about that.
Yeah, I've been there many a times. So, well, like at this point, it took me a while to actually like pretty much put that all into like what that is to me. For me, it's like when a person is saying one thing, but their actions is not lining up what they're saying. Pretty much, they letting you know that you're not the number one option. That's how I take it as. Because if you're that person's number one option and they're all in, you're going to have to do very little chasing, but it's not going to take much for you to really pursue them. You know what I mean? They're going to be 100% invested in you as you is with them. You know what I mean? So when you start hearing certain scenarios when a person is saying, oh, well, like, for example, I love spending time with you, but every time it's time for you guys to hang out or link up, this person got an excuse for every reason why they can't. That's a clear indication that they don't value you. They don't value you. They rather give you a plate full of lies of why they can't do it or excuses. You know what I mean? So for that to even transpire, you're only going to go so far, because what's going to happen is the more you keep pursuing this kind of person that feeds you excuses and, their actions not line up with their words, what's going to end up happening is you're going to become over pursuing them, chasing them to where they're going to notice that and start toying with you. You know what I mean? Say, oh, we could get up on Friday, for example. Friday come around. Oh, I can't do Friday. Maybe we could do next week. Like, it's going to be a ring around the rosy with this person. You know what I mean? That's why I say even like communicating, and it doesn't take much to realize if a person is invested into you or not, or if they're willing to compromise for you, willing to engage with you. Like, because like you said, communication, that's why communication is there. If a person is serious about you, their actions are going to line up with their words. They say, hey, look, I'm really into you. We're going out Friday. They're going to do everything they could to keep that date. And if they can't keep that date Friday, you're going to realize that they're either going to, for one, they're going to say, hey, look, I can't do Friday. Can we do Sunday? They're going to be more reasonable. So they'll reschedule. If a person cancels on you, they don't reschedule a date, they're not into you. You know what I mean? So, there's many different perspectives on that and point of views on that I could touch from. But words align with actions. It's a strong communication sign right there. And then you have to second guess yourself. 9 out of 10, that person's not for you. In short words, they don't value you. They're not for you. I want somebody who's going to value my time. My time is very important, just like their time would be important. I want to play with somebody's time, or, how can I say, like dangling them on, misleading them.
Can you give examples of what that looks like when in our perspective, being the male perspective, what it looks like when a female values your time, for all the people that are listening?
Oh, yeah. When a female values your time, she, before you even wake up, you're going to see a good morning text. You know what I mean? She's going to ask you, like she might even check on you throughout the day, phone calls, varies of, FaceTime, video chat, or, she might even just, if she's close to you, come check on you. When a woman value your time, and let alone your masculinity, anytime she have issues, for the most part, you're going to be the first to know about it. You know what I mean? You might get a text like, hey, my boss is stressing me out at work. And you might have to, she might ask you, what should I do? I'm already looking for another job. She's going to value everything about you. She's not going to make you feel like your time is not valuable and precious. She's going to want to try to be the center of your universe. You can't allow that, but that's up to the man. But it's going to go without saying. It's not going to take much to realize like how important you are to her. She's going to make future plans with you guys. Hey, my mom's having a birthday party. How do you feel about us going? I told her I was going to talk to you and invite you, you know what I mean? Or, we're having a family reunion. I want you to be there. Future plans. That's how you can tell if she's fully into you. She's going to bring you into her world. She's going to bring you around her friends, her family. Oh, this is my mom. This is my sister. This is my best friend, whatever. So, it's not going to take, it really is like, it shouldn't take too much for you to realize if the person is being serious with you or not. And then just like we just said, to reiterate, their words is going to lie with their actions, what they say and what they do. You know what I mean? It's not going to be too much second guessing when you could tell if a woman's fully invested into you or not.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed about that when I was dealing with in a narcissistic relationship is that narcissists, they tend to ghost you for a little bit under different circumstances. Sometimes when they're being their sneaky selves, or when something happens that puts them in the hot box, or sometimes they just do it to you just to kind of punish you, right? And then they'll just, you'll ask them a question, or you'll send them a text or leave them a message, and then they don't answer it. But then they'll come back to you a couple of days later, act like nothing ever happened, like you never asked them a question. It just be like, whatever, That happens a lot, and that's a narcissistic personality trait. Some people would just say it's a toxic person that doesn't value your time. So it all connects. But I learned that about ghosting and what that does, And unfortunately, a lot of men in modern society are becoming more feminine, and they're becoming way more emotional than they should be. So when that happens, they're like, why are you not calling me? And they love it. Like a narc loves it. They like, I got him.
I would say this, like, to me, ghosting could be essential depending on your age. Like, the reason I say that, because I did a little bit of ghosting myself, but you only get to a certain point in your age where you just realize the person might not be for you. You know what I mean? You might not be too well, you guys might just be dating and know each other, but, you start seeing things depending on the person and how they, their intellect is. You might not can't tell them. Nobody wants to hear, hey, look, you're not for me. You can tell a person that, but for the most part, we're grown. You know what I mean? You know if something's for you, if it's not for you. So ghosting could be a little essential to me. Have I been ghosted? Hell yeah, I've been ghosted a lot of times. But I mean, you get used to it to where it's like you'll move on, depending on like I said, the bond that you and that person, how long you've been talking to a person. Now, this is like a year or two invested in this to a person.
Was that it opened this aperture of consciousness, story, right? That a normal waking.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yeah, brother. Yeah,
Exactly.
something played in the background. My apologies.
No, you're good. But if you just met a person like like a month and two, and you're talking, and the person ghosts you, they might have had a better option, or they probably saw something that was a red flag for them. So to me, I mean, like, I don't take ghosting so personal, depending where you at in the relationship with the person.
Yeah,
I got ghosted, and I get over ghosting over a person easier when I get ghosted in the early stages. Now, like I said, we're a year in, and you do that, then we're gonna have to have a nice little sit down and talk about things, So
most likely in person too. I mean, I think some things have to be discussed in person. It can't even be discussed over the phone or anything like that.
Absolutely,
and that's just my opinion.
I agree with that.
And there's certain things that I'm actually going to be telling people that I know in person instead of telling them on the phone that I don't agree with, because I want them to be in front of me so they really understand where I'm coming from. So let's kind of get to the conclusion of this all, right? Because there's so much we could talk about, but it doesn't mean we have to do a 3-hour episode. Take was like, y'all should do a 3-hour episode on this. Like, no, bro, we could do increments of episodes about this, but not 3 hours. Because what I've noticed is that only a few people actually tune into something for 3 hours, but that's not very common. But in conclusion to a lot of what we're talking about, let's end it off with what the description says, that it's a two-way street, and that it's important to be equally investing into making it work. I want to talk about that because one of the things that I have that I didn't realize I have a lot of is empathy. And the one thing that's key about having empathy is that it naturally puts you in a state where you can kind of, and I say kind of because you're not really deliberately doing it, but you can deliberately do it too. But you got to be careful with that because that can turn into a manipulation thing. And I heard a CIA agent talking about putting your mind into that person's mind, like looking at everything from their perspective. And he's like, if you can do that, you can manipulate people to do whatever you want them to do because you're in their mind now. You're seeing things how they want want to see it. So you know exactly what to do so they see things the way they want to see it. That's what love bombing is part of, but we won't go there. That's for another day. The reason I bring that up is that empathy is the best way to put yourself in somebody else's shoes so you know how they feel when compromising. You can understand where they're coming from and listen to them and really get a great understanding of it. And I think that it's important. That's one of the most important things with this two-way street and being equally invested. So let's talk about what it looks like to be equally invested, because there's so many relationships that are unequally invested.
Wow. So it kind of goes back to what I like to reiterate, your time being valued, you know what I mean? Not just your time, but you being valued just in general. If a person doesn't value you, it's going to feel like the scale is up. One side is down, one side is up, to where it's like you're not, you could do so much for a person as far as you're helping them out financially if they need help, or, you're just there when they need you. And, you might have a moment to where you ask one little thing for that person and they turn around and just blow up on you like, oh, I can't do it. Or, they give you so little of themselves when you give so much of yourself. So to be that equal exchange, you have to see the same thing that you're investing come back to you in the ways too. And then it doesn't necessarily have to be the same ways. I'm just saying this as an example. You have a girl, you helped her out, with maybe a bill or two, or financially, should I say. And she might turn around and, cook for you, or, or she likes to go do clothes shopping for you. So, and you might like whatever she buys. Whatever, to me, it gotta be how can I put this? You have to see a person just notice you. They I don't know, your girl might have bought your favorite cologne or something that you like. You know what I mean? Something. Just she's paying that much attention to you that she knows what you like and what your dislikes. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily, the equal exchange don't have to be like finances versus finances. It's just, for me, it's her just paying attention to the small details. Like I said, I like certain colognes. She might have noticed the cologne I like. You know what I mean? And to me, I might notice her favorite dish that she likes to eat and decide to cook for her that night. So it's just that time being invested, to me, it's like getting to know more of that person and understanding more of that person without them necessarily telling you, but just by you paying attention. So, it could go many different ways, how different perspectives I could go from just the equal exchange, but I would say that's the main one for me. Is your time being, I'm sorry about that. I got this noise in the background. Is your time being equally invested?
Yeah, great points. Great points. Because in my experiences, I've had a little bit of both. I've had the unequal and the equal. And it's whenever it's unequal, it's very evident. It's like it's going to be pointed out to you very quickly. And that's what some people call the red flags. And a lot of times we disregard that red flag, and one of the most important things I can tell people is that don't disregard a red flag. Really examine it, and really see if it's worth moving forward, because chances are you're going to be in that unequal exchange and you're going to be giving way more time and energy to that person that they're giving to you. And that is not a good feeling. And that's not a good way to live in developing a relationship with somebody. It has to be equal.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're communicating, right? It's like a person can't always be calling you. You have to call them. But if you're only calling them and they never call you, that's not an equal exchange. There's not.
Not at all.
And just like you said, just doing things like cooking a meal or noticing something that they like, or making life a little bit easier for them when they're going through tough times, and being considerate. Showing a lot of consideration, which goes and ties in with the empathy as well. And also too, which has been talked about on this show many of times as well. But one of the most important things in my opinion is also being able to overcome adversity. And that's kind of when I want to end this off, is any true relationship is going to have adversity. It's going to be met with adversity. And even this too, that a lot of people don't know or may know, is that depending on how great that relationship and that union can be, the greater the adversity is. Because in the midst of a lot of righteousness, there's always wickedness that wants to infect and destroy that beautiful thing, that righteous thing, just like that malevolent or that satanic wicked force is always going to look to try to bring things down. That's where envy resides. Like that spirit of envy is all about that. It's like, I don't want you to be happy. I don't even want to see you smile. I don't want to see you enjoy anything that you can get in life. So I'm going to try to bring it down. So let's talk about that to end this episode, about how these friendships and relationships that are meaningful are the ones that overcome adversity.
Well, to me, it kind of goes back to what I was saying throughout the whole shows, how much you value a person. With adversity, I mean, that's just a stumbling block in the friendship or in the road to see how you're going to overcome that. Sometimes they make or break people, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen people been friends for years, you know what I mean, have a fallout over something so minute to where, you know what I mean? Like, it makes you question whether you guys friends or not, you know what I mean? So adversity itself is I always say it's going to make or break a relationship or a friendship. Relationships too, you know what I mean? You're going to go through moments where you guys are not going to be on good terms, you know, you're going to be on odd terms with each other. And you got to find out, like, to me, like, prime example was with the friend who I mentioned earlier in the show, who I haven't spoke to, and we talk every December. We had there's a moment in time when we did have a falling out, you know, so minute over, like, I think it was like $10 or something like that. But it came to a point where, you know, like, one of us, I think it was me first. I had to let my pride down and, like, you know, look, we've been boys for years. I'm not letting $10 get between us. You know what I mean? And he had his point too. He's like, well, it's the principle or something. You know what I mean? Like, I saw where he was coming from. Like you said, not that long ago, having empathy for somebody and seeing their point of view and taking it from there. So, like, to me, it's like, you have to really reflect on how serious and important somebody is to you. You know what I mean? I see couples who've been married 20, 30 years have adversity. You like that long, you're going to go through adversity. There's no way around that. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, right.
And they found their own ways. They found their own ways to cope with it and deal with each other. And see, in today's time, I realize it's so easy to call something off or end something because options just created every day more than ever. You know what I mean? We got the internet, you know, just it's so easy for another person to meet somebody else. But it's hard as hell to keep our friendship or our relationship long lasting. You know what I mean? I also think a lot of people, it's the pride alone. It's the ego is what gets in between a lot of things. You know, a lot of people don't want to be wrong, admit when they're wrong because their ego won't let them admit, hey, I'm wrong here. You know what I mean? So they'll be defiant to the end about the situation. So that's where I stand on with that. You have to really reflect on how serious your that person is in your life, the importance they are in your life. And if you guys are having a disagreement about if it's really that serious, even in all things on that level, you know what I mean?
Well said, bro. Well said. Well, thanks for coming on the show, bro. It's been a minute. Hopefully we do this more consistently. We got to get
Absolutely.
you got to get your podcast mojo back and get you back into the flow of things on a consistent basis. So I hope that this gives you a little bit of inspiration to do that. Any final words for the listeners?
I mean, I'm just glad to be back doing what I love. You know, podcast became something I love. Somewhere I can express my, you know, opinionated thoughts and point of views. And just connecting with like-minded people like yourself. You know what I mean? Other than that, I hope everybody enjoy their Sabbath. Or, you know, all praises to the Most High. You still here another day. You can enjoy the day. That's it. You know.
All right, bro. Well, peace and blessings to you, and may the force of the Most High be with you. Stick around for a second, and I'm just gonna end the show. So, for those that are listening, I want to thank you for, you know, taking a listen to this show. Let me play some music here like I normally do. And like I always say, when you live in the present, there's always an opportunity for a new beginning. So be present every day. And don't look for the light at the end of the tunnel, because the light is and always will be within you. So light up the tunnel and find your way through the darkness. And make sure to download, follow the show on Spreaker. Also, we have our new channel on Rumble, which is Network of Awareness, or Network of Awareness channel. And make sure to tune in. And with that being said, brothers and sisters, peace, love, and light. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Network of Awareness. If you would like to join or find out more about our show, please subscribe and follow us at networkofawareness.com or your favorite podcast listening platforms. If you would like for us to discuss any specific topic you would like to listen to, leave us a message on our website, or you can directly email us at orra@networkofawareness.com. Now, tune in to one of the fastest growing podcast shows on social, spiritual, and self-awareness. With that being said, people, living in the present, being directed by what's given in the hour-long sessions, mind-blowing confessions of improvement that needs checking. Welcome in all ears. Tuning out. Peace and blessings.